Seth MacFarlane is a guy I greatly admire. He's a smart guy, he's a funny guy, he's a talented guy, and he created Family Guy. One of the best shows ever. Back in 2012, Seth MacFarlane made his directorial debut with his feature film Ted, the story of a man and his best friend Ted the teddy bear. And it was incredibly funny. It wasn't just funny, it was also clever. It was a neat idea with a decent storyline and plenty of decent jokes and a pretty decent commentary on growing up. It also had one of the most surprisingly touching moments put to film, which I'm not going to talk about and I'm not going to spoil because if you haven't seen the movie yet, you should totally see it for yourself. Seth MacFarlane then went on to do his follow-up, A Million Ways to Die in the West, which isn't as funny as Ted, but was still pretty funny in my opinion. With those two films under his belt, I would go so far as to say that Seth MacFarlane is probably the Mel Brooks of our time. He's creatively funny and creatively silly. Two things that Mel Brooks was very good at. I want to make it clear how much I love Seth MacFarlane as a creator and how much I love Ted as a movie, so you may better understand my rather bittersweet disappointment with Ted 2. Now, I want to be clear. Ted 2 is not an awful movie. I don't hate the movie. I just think that it's not as funny, and it doesn't have as much charm as the first one did. It is very unfortunate, because even though sequels are usually never as good as the first movie, sometimes you can be genuinely surprised. I would probably say that Ted 2 is a perfect 50-50. On the one hand, it has a pretty good story, and still delivers some really good performances, but on the other hand, it's severely handicapped by a series of creative choices that, in my opinion, don't make a whole lot of sense. The story of Ted 2 is that Ted is suddenly declared property, because he's technically not a person, according to the eyes of the law. So, Ted decides to spend the movie trying to fight for his civil rights and to get recognized as a person. Why? Because he and his wife want to have a baby. So right there, Ted 2 becomes a kind of funny commentary for social rights and for equality for everyone, and is genuinely appropriate somehow. But unfortunately, it's held back by, again, a series of creative choices that didn't make any sense to me. Chief among them being Mila Kunis' character, Laurie, is not in the story at all. Now, mild spoiler warning, if you haven't seen the first movie yet, go see it first. Like right now. Like, stop here, watch Ted, and then get back to this review, okay? I'll wait. You seen it? Okay, here we go. At the end of the first movie, Mark Wahlberg and Mila Kunis' characters get married. And Mila Kunis' character even has a huge arc that is actually pretty profound for that kind of movie. And then the choices they make for justifying why she's not in the sequel don't make any sense. In fact, they go completely against the arc they made for her in the first movie. In the long run, that just ruined Ted 2 for me, because they had a great payoff in the first movie, and they didn't really do anything special for the beginning of the second movie. And it immediately became fairly clear that the sequel was less interested in being a sequel and more interested in being a kind of recreation of the first movie, which is an unfortunate trap that many sequels have fallen into before. It also doesn't help that the jokes in this movie aren't as funny in the first one. The first movie had some great jokes, and it was still just amazingly well delivered. And everyone in the first movie had a lot of energy and a lot of charm and a lot of good feelings. The second movie, they still have some of that, but it's not as much and it's not as energetic. It's kind of like everyone knew that they didn't need to make this movie, but somebody had to pay their taxes, so they went ahead and did it anyway. More likely, the studio demanded that Seth MacFarlane make a sequel to earn some extra cash for the summer. I don't want to not recommend Ted 2 because it still has some pretty decent moments and the story is well worth seeing the movie. But I also can't really recommend it because it's not as good as it should have been. So the best I can say is, if you've already seen Inside Out, then go ahead and try Ted 2. At the very least, it is significantly better than Terminator Genisys. Oh yeah, I'm still not going to get over that for a while. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Norman. Thank you for watching.